Well, hello there. It is great to see you again. Welcome back to Optimizing Your Financial World. I am your host, moderator Ryan Ruff, and you better believe we got our star of the show in Mr. Mark Wade, president of Echelon Family Office, joining us. We're going to be getting into another wealth management topic here on the show today. And for those of you who maybe are new to the show, each time Mark and I get together, we're basically tapping into his nearly 4 decades worth of experience in the financial services sector. We're unpacking a different wealth management topic, and these are just like the strategies and solutions and conversations that Mark is having with his clients on a regular basis, and we're just bringing them right here to you guys on this show. Boy, do we have a good one lined up for you guys today. So let me frame it up for you before we bring Mark in. If you are like many business owners, you're likely looking out for, more than just the financial health of your company. So, okay, what is that? When you look beyond that, you also want to be taking care of your family and your loved ones. And by providing for them and setting them up for a rewarding lives out on their own as well, even detached from you and your company. So today we're going to be exploring how a proactive estate plan can really help a family, a business owner pursue these goals exactly. And Mark, boy, is Mark knee deep in the estate planning world. So let's go ahead and bring him on and get right into today's conversation. Mark, it's good to see you today. How you doing?
Doing great, Ryan. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. We got a good little conversation here dialed up because I know you work so closely with so many business owners these days, Mark, and I'm sure this is a conversation that is a pretty frequent one, I would imagine. So, Mark, let's get right into it. Could you better just help us understand really the role that estate planning has within the life of an entrepreneur?
Oh yeah, and it's so important and absolutely so critical too. Estate planning is vital for business owners, and entrepreneurs because they want to make certain that after they spend a lifetime or maybe a large portion of their life, building their business and building and creating their wealth and building their wealth. Now they want to make sure that those assets are going to pass to whom they want it to pass to. In the manner that they want it to pass to, with the least amount of hassle and the least amount of taxes, and that their family has, the financial resources to move successfully forward in life. So at its core, estate planning is the process for how you transfer your wealth. It's done very carefully and thoughtfully, and estate planning can enable you to pass your assets as you see fit while minimizing that state and federal tax bill. And because those bills often accompany the transfer of any size wealth, and it's obviously a big issue, for most of our entrepreneur business owner clients.
Well, speaking of just that, Mark, that it is an issue for them, do you find that in your experience that these business owners and entrepreneurs, they recognize the need, for a smart estate planning, but they're also taking the steps to actually go about it?
Well, the answer to that is a resounding yes and no. The good news is that, from what we can see, many successful business owners do have some kind of estate plan in place. We're fond of saying, when we meet with someone, they typically have some, and on very rare occasion, all of the work done, but rarely is it done as well as or as current as possible because the environment is constantly changing. Their family's constantly changing, laws are constantly changing, and their business changes. In fact, one study that we used showed that about 88% of successful entrepreneurs had a minimum a will, drafted and set up, and it was current at one point in time. So, at least that might serve some service in passing the assets on to the beneficiaries or heirs.
Yeah, it's good to hear. But I'm also hearing the flip side. There's that but. You're seeing that, there is instances where business owners aren't necessarily taking care of their estate planning efforts ongoing. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. The reality is, entrepreneurs may not be as well prepared for wealth transfer as they think they are. That very same study showed that while 85% of the, or 85% of those that did have some estate plans, and this of these successful business owners, they were more than 5 years old. So lots of those plans were outdated and not as current as possible to keep up with their current financial situation or the legal situation in the state in which they live. So right off the top, I talked about, the tax laws. So, there are continual changes in tax laws that mean that the older estate plans may not take full advantage of the current opportunities to transfer assets, in the most optimal way. And then you think about, those tax law changes can mean that some aspects of the older estate plan might not even be valid any longer, which, well, that could be a disaster. And then changes in your company's financial health and in your own wealth status could mean that your estate plan may no longer, accurately reflect the financial situation and the future needs and goals of you and your family. And of course, changes in the personal and family situation, whether it be marriages, divorces, deaths, or births, and any variety of other things, health notwithstanding, may it may make changes to your you know may cause your current estate plan to be ineffective, or accomplish that which you're hoping it will do. So these events, from divorce to birth, or grandchildren to death of prospective guardians, or minor children, and so forth, they can have major impacts on the planning for the future and any of your existing estate plans. So it's really wise to have these things looked at and updated.
Yeah, so bottom lining it, what I'm hearing that you're saying is it's very likely that the current estate plans for a sizable number of business owners and entrepreneurs are currently outdated.
Yeah, outdated and very likely not as effective as they hope it will be. So, in order to retain the best benefits from estate planning, you need to stay on top of it. As a matter of fact, and you need to revise your estate plan when appropriate. Especially as new events develop that could potentially change your company or your personal wealth. And as we know, a lot of life and laws, they change a lot. A lot of things can happen and change in 5 years.
Exactly. So, Mark, could you give us maybe an example and break one down for us on how an outdated estate plan could put an entrepreneur or maybe his entire family, his or her entire family's financial future a little bit at risk?
Okay, so let's use the most unfortunate situation, right? So let's say an affluent business owner dies and doesn't even have a will. Suddenly out of nowhere, you may find that he has relatives that live thousands of miles away, and they may appear on his family's doorstep and demand a share of the wealth. Which could leave the family and your close loved ones with far less, if in fact they're able to access that wealth through the courts. So in the worst case, the company itself may need to be dissolved just to pay for the claims and any residual estate taxes not covered in the plan. Or what about this one? How about you assume that a business has taken on new partners and stakeholders since the estate plan was first written? At the primary owner's death, family members, may end up suing each other for control of the assets and fighting over the future direction of the firm. That's I've seen that happen more than once.
Hmm.
And another situation might be that an entrepreneur's son becomes seriously addicted to some unfortunate, drug. If the estate plan calls for him to receive a huge lump sum with no strings attached upon the entrepreneur's death, that could put the son in a really bad situation, because now he'd had all this money to burn through, and could really put his life at risk, if he's not already. And so, for example, if he uses all this money to fund, that dangerous lifestyle, it could be disastrous.
Sure, sure. So, Mark, in instances like these, where we're clearly recognizing that entrepreneurs need to be making sure their estate plan is staying up to date, it's relevant, given all these changing parameters in their lives. What do entrepreneurs need to be considering then, if they do fall into that bucket and they know that they need to get things updated in order to avoid some negative outcomes down the road?
Well, the estate planning is a large and encompassing subject, right? But let's just look at some of the basics. Let's just look at some of the first things you should look at. And that might be, has your financial situation changed since the last time you had that plan developed and implemented or even reviewed? Has your business interests changed? Or, okay, how have the people involved in your business changed since that time? And has anything else changed in your life, or the lives of anybody in your family or those who are important to you, that might inherit the assets someday? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, it's probably time, to update that plan in some way. At the very least, have it reviewed and hopefully a stress test. We've talked about that in the past, Ryan. A stress test is extremely effective in determining whether or not your plan, whether it's estate, investment, insurance, is going to perform how you hope it will perform. You stress test it. So you start by determining the ideal outcome and or outcomes of an estate plan according to you in your eyes. Okay. And then, distributing your assets at death as you want them to be distributed has to be the number one driver behind any of the estate planning decisions. So, you think about, you know, what do you want to have happen to your wealth? That's the foundational question.
So, Mark, once you have clarity on that issue, you recognize the need for the updating in the estate plan. What's the next step? What does implementation look
So,
like?
Ryan, armed with that current information, you consider issues such as how do you want your children to receive the assets? Do you want them to receive it in a lump sum, spread out over a number of years in stages? That's something to consider. You know, whether to distribute assets using a fairness approach, which means everybody gets what they need or deserve, as you see it, or in an equalization approach, which simply means everybody gets the same amount, regardless of what that particular asset is. Some people may get cash, some people may get the business. Now, you have to just remember that your succession plan for your business and how well it works with your larger estate planning goals. That's extremely important. The coordination of your business, financial, and legal world with your personal financial and legal world, that kind of makes everything hum properly. Everyone's got to be on the same page, reading out of the same book, and all these strategies have to work together, along with the existing documents you have in place, whether or not they're up to date and positioned the way that you want them. If they're older, they may not be accomplishing the same things in the same manner. So the documents need to be part of the most estate of your most current estate plan also. And just to run down, a couple things real quick, that's going to mean like a basic will, trust documents, uh, beneficiary forms for life insurance, investment and retirement contracts, durable and medical power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, maybe a living will with an advanced medical directive, an inventory of assets, lists of contacts like bankers, advisors, attorneys, etc., and a list of passwords to your email and other online accounts, and of course, at the end of the day, what are the funeral arrangements? So, digital assets nowadays, you have to take very careful consideration where you store them and who has access to the passwords.
Roger that, Mark. Yeah, we've given our audience a lot to consider in terms of the do's. Make sure you do these things when it comes to your estate plan. But before we wrap up today, I think it's worthwhile for us to kind of get into maybe some of the warnings or mistakes to avoid, when people are considering to revise and update their estate plan. What do you see as the don'ts that they should be looking into?
The most common don't is don't over focus on how to cut the tax bill. Okay. By the maximum amount possible. It's important. Yes, everyone wants to pay the least amount of taxes allowable under the law, and your advisory team will help you do that. But to only concentrate on that could be a big mistake. Strategies that enable, the maximum tax benefits often come with strings attached, and those strings may require you to give up control of the assets that you want to transfer, and the outcome may not be undesirable for you, right? You may not want to give up control. So remember, the true goal of any estate plan, is to transfer your wealth in accordance with your wishes. The tax mitigation, while often very important and very beneficial, we don't deny that. It's an extremely important part of estate planning is the taxes, but that should not be the overriding driver of your estate planning decisions. Making sure what you have goes to who you want the way you want is maybe the most important decision.
Sure thing, Mark. And these are those conversations that you're having with your clients at Echelon Family Office regularly and routinely. So for anybody out in our audience that's, recognizing the need to maybe get their estate plan in order and maybe they want to pick your brain and your team's brain over at Echelon Family Office, what would be the best way somebody could get in touch with you guys to just open up a dialogue and talk about their specific estate planning needs?
Well, you could start by visiting us on the web, www echelon office, that's ECHELON office.com. Feel free to call in 888-892-9882. Or if you're so inclined, email me directly. I'd be more than happy to take your email and respond myself. And that's MWADEM Wade at Echelon Wealth. That's ECHELON LON, the word wealth.com.
All right, fantastic, Mark. Well, look, I appreciate you carving some time out of your day to jump on, be with us, and get into this idea of estate planning. Boy, is there a lot of information that's really packed within this conversation. But at the end of the day, it comes to making sure that your estate plan remains, up to date and you're adhering to it as time goes on. So, Mark, appreciate you and your wisdom today, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Ryan. Looking forward to next month.
All righty, Mark. And hey, look, as always, we also want to say thank you to our audience, you guys, for jumping aboard and hanging out with us here on the show today. If you took anything away from the conversation, hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you checked us out on. That way you never miss a new conversation that Mark and I are having on this show. Because, boy, do we have a great list of topics, a lot of wealth management conversations we're going to be bringing to you guys. We're tapping into Mark's 4 decades worth of experience. And, boy, that means there's a lot of value in these conversations, and we'd love to have you be a part of them. So be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss out on any episodes. Before Mark, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long, but we appreciate you guys being aboard with us one final time here on Optimizing Your Financial World.